So I was scrolling YouTube, you know, the thing that all of us do, all of us real human beings and aliens inhabiting human bodies pretending to be human. And I came across this video. First of all, what? Tom Hanks? I love Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is in one of my favorite rom-coms ever, You've Got Mail, so I have a soft spot for him. But this made me think of two things. One, this is a great idea. How do I steal this and make this into a booktube video? And two, what would my last meal be? Didn't take long. Easy. First of all, a cup of tea with a double chocolate muffin from one of two very specific locations here in South Africa. I have to make the tea for myself. Other people make terrible cups of tea. Then a huge plate of very crispy chips with a lot of cheese grated on top and a hollandaise sauce on the side. Washed down with a dry lemon or a homemade lemonade made by me or a limeade. Finally, a cup of rooibos. And then, you know, kill me. End my life. Government. So that's answered the second question, but what about the first? Well, I will be reading my last meal. I'm going to try and find books with some of the food items in my list in the title or authors' names or whatever. I might cheat, I don't know. But one, can't be a non-fiction, so no cookbooks, that's cheating. And two, there is no second rule. Fooled you. Alrighty, so I have scoured the internet in search of books with these words in the title and have been pretty successful. I do have some things to note. The easiest one to find was tea. There are a lot of books about tea, which makes sense. It is the most popular beverage in the world outside of water. The other thing to note is that cozy mysteries and kids books, that's all you're gonna get. The hardest thing to find was rooibos. I didn't find a fiction book with the word rooibos in the title. It didn't look that hard, but everything else was kind of hard to find as well because I'm not interested in reading a children's book or a cozy mystery. I can barely tolerate cozy mysteries. So anyway, here are the books that I found. I'm not going to read all of them, obviously. These are just my options. 2 of them are science fiction books, 3 of them are romance, 3 of them are women's fiction or general fiction type books, and 5 of them are cozy mysteries. It could have been worse. They could have all been cozy mysteries. That all falls into the genres I typically read, except for the general fiction, women's fiction books. I don't typically pick those books up. I find they're too mundane for me. I'm going to read one from each food item, and I'm going to choose based on availability and interest, and also trying to avoid reading too many cozy mysteries, just to make this not so miserable. Also, I could make all of these things, but I'm not going to. Tea is in the last meal because I agree with everyone else on planet Earth. It is my favorite beverage outside of water, and it just brings me comfort. I just associate it with feelings of comfort and warmth and relaxation. I've been drinking tea since I was a baby. Maybe not black tea, They start you off with rooibos. But I think if I could have a cup of tea that I make myself, I have to make my own tea before being executed, I would go peacefully. I would go peacefully anyway because, I'm kind of tired of being alive. Anyway, I chose to read Together Tea by Marjan Kamali. And this is a general fiction, women's fiction, historical fiction about an Iranian US-American family set mostly in the 90s. We follow the women of the story, the maman, Daria, who wants the best for her daughter and thinks that the best thing for her is to arrange a marriage for her, I guess, and also Mina, who is the uninterested daughter. I loved this book. I usually don't like this style and genre of book. This is like extremely character driven, but I liked it. I liked how light and breezy and funny it was, how it didn't feel belabored despite the subject matter of this book. I don't think you can be Iranian and not have been affected in some way by the revolution in the late 70s. No matter where you are. I loved all the characters except Daria, the mom. She had to grow on me a little bit, but even at the end I was like, okay girl, sure. And I loved all of the food descriptions. This made me want to try Iranian food. I have tried some, like without knowing it, I guess. Like sometimes the food would be described to me, I'd be like, oh, I've had that, without knowing that it was Iranian. But I wanna try more. Some of it sounded really delicious. There's no plot, so I can't tell you what this book is about. This book is like I said, about Daria who wants to set her daughter up, and her daughter's uninterested. There's stuff that happens though, and there's stuff that they do. I mean, I said I didn't like Daria much, but her homesickness for her community and her perpetual grief for her mother, and seeing her be awkward in one situation and completely thrive, blossom in another. There was something about that was oddly relatable, you know. And so was Mina's awkwardness in every situation. I was like, Mina girl, you need to learn how to code switch, girl. I also really liked how sweet and supportive, almost too supportive, that dad was. Like, I just this book gave me the warm, comfortable feelings that a good cup of tea gives me. This relatability to these characters, despite my not being an immigrant, this relatability reminded me of that old idea about how colonialism makes you a stranger in your own land, and the nostalgia and homesickness that she felt for the community and how interconnected the families are. I miss that too. I feel like that doesn't exist anymore. The nuclear family has completely taken over, you know, collectivism and community and such. I did, however, skip the entirety of part 2 of this book. I just saw part 2, 1978 at the top. I was like, no, I can't do this. I really don't like historical fiction. Like, I can tolerate the 90s if it's not obnoxious, but yeah, no, anything earlier than that, I just cannot. I can't deal with it. I'm sorry. I don't feel like I'm sure I did. I'm sure I missed out on some very important things about how everyday Iranian people were affected by the revolution, but you know, I read non-fiction for that stuff. I did find myself kind of, you know, my interest sort of waning in the book again because it's more character driven than I like. So I found myself skimming, especially with the romantic parts. But let me tell you, when I got to the end though, I was weeping. You know, like eyeballs burning, ugly crying, but not in like a sad way. Nothing sad happened. It was just beautiful. It was just, oh my god, I had so much affection for the people in this book, and I wanted to see them happy and succeed, and that's why I was crying. Loved it. Now back to the food stuff. Tea review. I'm giving the tea in this book 3 out of 10. I like milk in my tea, and I also like to keep the tea bag in. I used to drink my tea black back in the day. I used to like it really bitter and astringent, you know. Not anymore. My other tea review is, I don't know how much sugar the people put in their tea in this book. It was never mentioned. I don't remember it being mentioned, and that bothered me. Fun fact about tea, and the reason why I've been trying to cut down, is 1, it interferes with your iron absorption, and 2, it's high in aluminium, especially compared to other, you know, brewed beverages. And a high concentration of aluminium is linked to degenerative brain diseases, maybe. So yeah, I'm trying to cut down on tea. And like I said, I've been drinking tea since I was a baby, so like, you know. But yeah, that was great. Move on. Then I also read Muffin Top Magic because it's, you know, it goes together, tea and a muffin. Muffin Top Magic was a painfully uninspiring novella. This book is quite possibly the blandest book I've ever read in my entire life. Like, it's about friendship and witches. The writing was easy to read, except for there were sometimes some phrases that were used that would make me take like ticks of damage. I think I was down to like 4 hearts, but wow, just wet bread, this book. But it was short, and it did save me from having to read a longer but equally as bland romance or another cozy mystery, which, oh my god, I'm probably gonna have to read like 2 at this point. I can't, you know. So do I have a fun fact about muffins? No. The difference between a cupcake and a muffin is the density. Apart from the icing, obviously. Muffins are less sweet. They're more dense also. My food technology degree really working in this video. I associate these muffins, things like freedom and travel and hope and peace of mind. That food is linked with specific memories that evoke those feelings in my brain. There's nothing like a good muffin and a terrible burnt coffee from a garage in the morning on a trip. I'm just going to breeze through these, and I'm going to be relying very heavily on my notes because I barely remember any of these books. Also, I've edited the previous clips, and like, there's a lot of wishing for death in those. To be fair though, it was the week before my period, and now that I've started my period, I still desperately want to not exist anymore. Fit to be French Fry is a short cozy mystery that reminded me of Psych, except this wasn't a comedy. The only reason why it reminded me of Psych is because it's always summer in the Psych world, and this book felt very summery as well. This is about a food truck owner who gets herself embroiled in a mystery involving the seniors at the local complex. The story, from what I remember, was like, it was engaging enough, I guess. The mystery was a bit obvious, but this is a book that's meant to be read by everyone in the house, like everyone from an 8-year-old to a 99-year-old, I guess. So I understand why. Nothing too violent happens in this, so it is like very appropriate for anybody. Anyone can pick this up, so you know, it's good. Do I have a fun fact about chips? Yes, I do. They're the best food. And also, people who prefer sweet potato chips over normal potato chips are my mortal enemy. Then I read a children's book, something, the cheese mystery, Curse of the Cheese Pyramid or something. I did not want to read the romance because it started off with that very cliche scene. You know that scene where a woman thinks she's about to get proposed to at a restaurant, but in actual fact, her boyfriend is dumping her. You know, I couldn't do it. I even tried the cozy mystery. I couldn't deal with the fact that it was written in first person. So was the romance. And I also couldn't deal with just how unexciting it was at the beginning. So I decided to pick up this children's book instead. And boy, am I glad I did, because this is so cute. This is so cute. So this is about Geronimo, who works for a family-owned newspaper, a newspaper that desperately needs an HR department. The labor laws in this rat world are just as weak as in the US. Anyway, his boss, grandfather, sends him off to Egypt to do a story on the pyramids, and you know, that's what we do. These books seem to exist in order to teach 7 and 8-year-olds about the different cultural and historical sites around the world. So I wanted to see if this was done effectively, and I think this one did a pretty good job. There even seems to be like a rat version of I forgot his name, but he's that like famous Egyptologist, like real life, the one we all know. He's like always on National Geographic. You know that guy? I think he's the right version of him. But this was pretty, pretty informative, I guess. Things do get a bit silly. There's like some weird machine made with like camel dung. I don't know what that was about, but it was cute. Really cute. Fun fact about cheese? No. Then to round off our meal, the hollandaise sauce. I couldn't really find any books with the word hollandaise in the title. I mean, I did find a few, but they were not appealing or not available. So I thought, okay, well, hollandaise is an egg yolk based dish, so I'll read a book about an egg yolk. And I found one book with the word yolk in the title. Was not interested. It was giving mundane, literary fiction. So I thought, okay, well, maybe not just the egg yolk, maybe the whole egg. And there are a lot of books with the word egg in the title, but I settled on The Crystal Egg by H.G. Wells, mostly for the length. Hollandaise sauce is in my last meal because 1, it comes with the chips in the meal from this one specific restaurant, and 2, because eggs are amazing. Fun fact, eggs are a complete protein. That means that they have all of the amino acids that your body needs to do body stuff. Anyway, the crystal egg, I will let Mike's Mike explain why I only got 2 pages into this book.
But I have this condition where I get really scared if I watch a movie or TV show that looks old. So I'm not watching that.
Guess what I did? I picked up the wrong Making Lemonade. Which is weird because one has like a bright blue and yellow cover and the other one is like an old still life. I love a good still life, by the way. But anyway, somehow I managed to do that because the summaries are the same. It's basically the same book. They're both about a woman who like works too hard and then she gets cheated on by a husband and the husband divorces her and then she has to start all over again. In my Making Lemonade that I read, our woman goes back to Denver, wherever that is, and and then she starts over. She opens an antique shop. One thing about this book though is that this is one of the worst books I've ever read in my entire life. One of the worst books. One of the worst. Horrible. The writing was horrific. I will try and put up examples of the writing. It was extremely juvenile. Most of the story was told through dialogue, and the dialogue is horrible. Like every time a character speaks, they have to refer to who they're speaking to. That is true, John. That did in fact happen. Thank you, Brenda. I appreciate that. No problem, John. Like that. The whole time. Amazing. Amazing. But here's the thing, right? I enjoyed this. I was enjoying myself. It's bad, but I was enjoying this because I enjoy a very particular type of suffering. A very particular type of suffering that this book gave me. It wasn't like bad annoying, and it wasn't so bad it's good. This is not a good book, like you're not gonna enjoy this, but it just hit. I love to complain and grumble to myself. Those are two of my favorite hobbies. I love it. I loved starting a new chapter and just being like, whoa, this is so bad. I was enjoying it. Also, I'm gonna spoil this book for you at the end because like don't read this is really bad. She takes back her cheating husband at the end of this book. She has other like viable romantic options. Oh my god, I just had a flashback to the sex scene in this book. Oh, anyway, she has other viable romantic options. And she's like, no, I'm gonna take him back. So bad. I think I managed to enjoy this, because I enjoy suffering like this in this particular way. And also because this book was this is a very easy book to skim read because the characters like to recap events constantly. You could skip literal chapters. I am not exaggerating. You can skip actual chapters and don't worry, somebody will be like, that is true, Brenda. As I can't believe like two people wrote this and they were like, yeah. We started very strongly and it just downward trending from there. We basically peaked in high school with this video, but I am glad I did it. Despite all of the mediocre and or downright bad stuff I had to read, I'm glad I did this because I got to read Together Tea, and Together Tea is definitely not a book I would have picked up otherwise on my own, ever. So it was worth it in the end. It was worth reading Making Lemonade and reading 2 pages of a book from the 19th century just for Together Tea. What's your last meal? Listen to that. Trying to talk about a children's book that I read like last week that I barely remember, but it was really cute. Oh my god.